The MLS calendar will in fact change in 2027. USL Playoffs get to the business end, and the men's national team take to the field again on Saturday afternoon. That and more on a big edition here on Friday of Morning Kickaround. Hello and welcome to the show. You found your way to Morning Kickaround, where we dot the map of the American soccer landscape. My name's Robert Kerr, local soccer guy. To my side, Jason Davis, radio soccer guy. On the other side of the screen, MK Ultras. Welcome on in, viewers. Thank you for joining us here on a monumental week in American soccer.
Big. Every week is a monumental week in American soccer because we are always headed in some direction. Are we headed forward? That's the question today, Rob. Shout out to Matthew, who's become an MK Ultra. That's big. Look at how dapper our man Matthew is in that photo. That's pretty incredible. He's got headshots over there. That's great.
Best dressed Ultra.
Ooh, is that a thing? Are we doing that? Is there going to be a Discord channel for that? Best dressed Ultra.
Yeah, look, adding
you know what?
Thread.
How about our man Tosa Mario too? Look at that. Look at that.
Fly.
That is good. Now, I don't know if I can pull off red like our man Mario is. And I know that we, having discussed this with Mario when we met him in Albuquerque, Mario, Puerto Riqueño, he is a Puerto Rican man. My Puerto Rican father-in-law is the only other person I know can pull off red. Maybe it's a Puerto Rican thing. Maybe los boricuas, que they pueden hacerlo. I don't know. It might be a thing.
I'm just restricted to gray and blue suits. Haven't yet attempted the bright red one.
Red is
kudos.
A move. Red is a move. It's
kudos
a big one.
To the red suited man. And a shout out to our other most recent MK Ultra, Christopher Fair. If you're in here, I think you're compelled to throw yourself in a picture of a zoot suit or something like that in the mix. But thank you so much. Big stuff to get to on the way. If you haven't already heard, MLS owners voted to change the calendar, so we'll have a lot of discussion on that through the second half of the show. But we're going to talk men's national team, some updates from new teams and stadiums across the country, and then we'll get to the Fab Four. Which games are you circling on the calendar this weekend? And I'd say there's some good games, but that pool of games maybe a little small, but high quality on the way. As we get going, hit subscribe, then step it up a notch if you are so inclined. $3.99 a month, become a membership. That's the fee to become an MK Ultra channel member. You get all sorts of perks like priority commenting on these live streams, bonus content, and access to that aforementioned Morning Kickaround Discord server. So you ready to kick some balls?
Let's do it. Let's kick them.
All right, Friday morning long balls. Let's go. United States men's national team take to the field once again. They go to Chester, Pennsylvania for the first time since 2018. They take on the number 39 team, according to FIFA World Rankings, Paraguay, on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting to go to Chester in November when you could go further south, but it's fine. Spread the wealth. Chester, obviously a good place for soccer in this country at this point, with the Philadelphia Union doing their thing. As you mentioned, 39th ranked. Paraguay, not one of the heavier hitters from South America, but nonetheless a challenge, right, for the U.S. men's national team, an opportunity to test themselves, or at least we thought this might be an opportunity to test themselves, Rob, but then Christian Pulisic didn't come, and Weston McKennie was left out, and Tyler Adams had to pull out, and all these things are swirling around. There are storylines here. They're just not maybe the ones we really wanted as Mauricio Pochettino gets ready to roll this group out against Paraguay on Saturday.
There's certain corners of the men's national team fan base that will be salivating. I mean, there's a whole cottage industry discussing Gio Reyna, and he's in the possibility to, return to the team next week or tomorrow, rather. Also, do you think we might see a Serginho Dest a sighting in the mix here? Is he in the running to be in the squad? Because we didn't get to see him last time.
Yeah, that's the thing. I actually put together, and I'm ready to not debate this because I don't think any of us has a really clear sense of what Pochettino is going to do with his lineup with the names missing that I've already outline, but this is what I threw together, Rob, this morning, trying to figure out what this team might look like. I don't know. I mean, the back three seems to be fairly established as something Pochettino wants to do. You mentioned Dest. He can slot in as that wing back on the right side. Max Starston is the guy he's been turning to in the absence of Anthony Robinson, so I would imagine he's there. You could swap out Robinson for Trusty, and I would kind of shrug and go, sure, why not? I don't know 100% what that will look like, except I imagine that Ream will start and that Freeze will start in terms of defenders. In the midfield, Tessman, Aronson, Roldan, those are the guys I'm picking. So you've got Roldan, Gio Reyna, who's definitely not 90 minutes fit. I don't think he's a starter. Aiden Morris, not sure how he's ahead of Tanner Tessman, so I would have him there. Sebastian Berhalter, and you could certainly make an argument for Berhalter because of his set piece ability, because I don't think there is a great set piece taker in the team that I have outlined right here. So if you imagine that's an important thing and you want somebody that can take a set piece, Sebastian Berhalter is your guy there. And of course, Timmy Tillman came in to replace Adams/Zawadzki. I don't expect him to start, but he is another option. And then Brendan Aronson's listed as a forward, and this did come up in the conversation when the roster was dropped. Somebody asked Pochettino about, well, actually, I think it was Diego Luna that he mentioned was listed as a forward instead of a midfielder, and he's like, well, he's an attacker. And these are all players mixed up in some way. Aronson could be where Luna is, and Luna could be where Aronson is, and they could be swapping all the time. I honestly, again, I think there are so many questions around what this looks like that it's kind of just going to be sit back and watch, and maybe not to get too precious about what you expect come tomorrow.
As we go and shout out to Mr. Vertigo, brand new member of the MK Ultras. Welcome aboard. I think that's our friend from Carolina that when we were discussing new clubs starting from ones closed down, we shouted out that team. So I think
Mountain
Mr. Vertigo
to
connected.
sea. Mountain to sea. I think it's I don't want to say FC or SC. It is an FC. It's an FC. Mountains, plural. Mountains to Sea FC. There in Raleigh.
That will be an easy dot to add to the map there, Jason. We already know there, but back to the game. Interesting note, there is a decent amount of Philadelphia connections on this roster. Brendan Aronson, Mark McKenzie, Austin Trusty, Matt Freeze amongst those.
Let me put it back up. I put Pepe there because I want to see Pepe and he's back. But obviously Fowler and Balogun can start. In fact, it's probably like, again, this is just sort of like maybe this could happen and maybe I want to see these players. But if you say Fowler and Balogun should start instead of Ricardo Pepi, I'm not going to argue with you. What I don't think is going to happen is that Pepi and Balogun play together. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they are too similar in terms of the spaces they want to occupy. I think they would get in each other's way, and I don't think they're great in playing in combination with somebody sort of in the same level. And they both want to be they want to be line leaders. You would need somebody to drop deeper, and I don't think either one of those guys is made for that. So that would be my only thing about Fowler and Balogun.
I feel like the conversation about forwards is a lot more enjoyable at this time with more players pressing for that, more forwards in form in this player pool, which is kind of exciting because there's a number of different. We want to see Pepe in there again,
Sure.
But it's been a minute. We've seen other players since then, but there are a number of forwards, like you said, Wright or Balogun that you'd see in there and would be pleased. When we talked about when the roster was released originally, was it last week or the week before, you gave an over-under on minutes for one Gio Reyna. Was that like, did you say 30 or 45 combined between the two games?
Well, I gave a number that I think would represent a worthwhile view of Gio Reyna considering his status in the team, which is very much a shrug emoji. Like, I just don't know. And this week has been some discussion about his behavior because Mauricio Pochettino was asked about Reyna, and he said, well, we want to leave the door open for players to come back in. The past is in the past, all the things that you would say to justify calling up Gio Reyna. And obviously the question is, will he behave? I think he probably will. I don't think there's like going to be any issue there, although let's point out that both Gio Reyna and Sebastian Berhalter are in this team. So, get over it, guys, if it is a thing. I don't know. I mean, remember, these two families were super close. I imagine those guys have spent plenty of time together in lives. Is it going to be like, brothers who haven't gotten along for a while getting back together and figuring out how to make it work? Or is it going to be like just cold shoulder? And by the way, I don't know that that's actually going to matter in this camp. I will address this from Bernardo. The lineup is good, but as a 3-4-2-1. I'll put it back up one more time. The reason it is not a 3-4-2-1 is because FOTMob, where I made this, does not allow for a 3-4-2-1. So,
What?
and I don't know that it's a 3-4-2-1 when it leaves a line leader like Pepe or Balogun up top, and then two players in behind him. It could play like it absolutely could play like that in possession. It could also play as more of a 3-4-1-2 or something like that, depending on who you think is that string puller. And again, the only string puller in the camp is Giovanni Reyna, and Giovanni Reyna is not ready to start with this team, and I would be shocked if he did. But it could happen. Anything could happen, Rob.
Men's national team take on Paraguay in an international friendly at 5:00 on Saturday afternoon. We are doing the Fab Four games of the weekend in about 10 minutes. Curious to see if that gets in the mix for anyone carving time out of their day to do that, avoiding all the other kind of USL playoff games and the other sports happening on Saturday. Curious how many people suggest the men's national team is part of their Fab Four. Moving across the country, a little bit of a stadium news update. Des Moines, Iowa, developers of a $90 million pro soccer stadium in downtown Des Moines have a little bit of hope to finalize funding for the long-awaited project within the next few days. Developer CEO Kyle Kraus of the Kraus Group, we feel good about getting close to the help that we need from the city, with help from the state, with help from other private donors to get this whole thing done in the next couple days. It's been a long process, but things are complicated and they take time. So some positive news from a project that seemed like it might wither on the branch there.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, a month ago or so, because something got presented as if it was new. And we're like, oh, there's movement in Des Moines. They're actually doing something after all, everything had gone quiet and there was radio silence. And then it turned out that actually none of that was new. And it was just kind of rehashing something that had already come up. Now we have this. And the women's team element is new, right?
Mm-hmm.
Throwing that into the mix. I don't know exactly why that's happening now, but and maybe some of that is the way to push forward that assistance that they want in order to get this off the ground, right? And again, the funding gap that has been there and has been mentioned as the reason why this hasn't gone forward. Now, I don't love doing the thing where we spend other people's money, and I to say like, oh, how dare you, Kyle Kraus, have this sitting there doing nothing? You bought up the rights to the USL in Des Moines, and you're not doing anything with them. I mean, obviously that is the problem, right? If USL is the right kind of league for a city like Des Moines, Iowa, and somebody buys the franchise rights and it does nothing with them, then soccer fans in Des Moines are left out in the cold when it comes to professional soccer. So if this is moving forward, then this is good. Kraus said they're within a few $1 million of reaching their $90 million funding goal. And as long as, again, this isn't a bad deal for the city of Des Moines, and we looked a little bit into the location and some of the things, there's remediation that needs to be done, right? Wasn't this a factory site, something like that? If this is not a bad deal for the city of Des Moines, then I'm excited for it, because absolutely Des Moines, Iowa should be a place for a professional soccer team. We should be able to dot the map on Des Moines. And looking at the renderings, which I don't have up, but looking at the renderings, it is, it's an appropriately sized small soccer stadium for a place like Des Moines, Iowa. It doesn't look like it's, I mean, I'm sure it's like one of those expandable situations. It doesn't look like they'd be aiming at that 15,000 target initially. So in terms of first division soccer, is that something Des Moines has in their plan with USL and their big plans? I don't know, but this is absolutely progress.
Indeed. Good to see some positivity out there. Apparently that gap that was causing the delay, around $22 million in that space between, the commitment and what they wanted from the municipal funds. And just an interesting sign of the times that they might go from 0 professional teams in Des Moines, Iowa to having 2 right in the mix there. And the Gainsbridge Super League, the USL's women's league, obviously looking for more teams. They're petitioning expansion teams hard because they want to flesh out that women's team. Do you think there could be perhaps some back chat, like maybe some things get easier if they facilitate a women's side?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of alluding to. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a weird allegation to kind of throw out there. Like, oh, they couldn't get more funding until they said we're also going to do a women's team, and then that makes it a very cynical ploy to launch a women's team. But at the same time, the ends would justify the means for me as a soccer fan, because a professional women's soccer team in Des Moines sounds like a good idea, right? As long as they're going to care for it and run it properly. And the Super League is an interesting proposition right now. And what's obviously interesting about the Super League in this moment on this day, as we get ready to talk about the MLS calendar change, is they did it first. They are the Simpsons of this situation. Simpsons did it. USL Super League did it first, playing on the quote unquote European calendar. So I don't know. That's all very interesting, this mix of things happening.
I'm curious to hear from anyone in the chat right now. Any Iowa locals in there have any sort of input in there, throw it in the chat as we continue. But yeah, the Gainbridge Super League, only 9 teams at the moment, with several prospective members set to launch soon. So that league definitely looking to add some teams. Moving along, as we are wont to do on Friday mornings, it's the Fab Four of the weekend, where we carve, or we throw out the games that we are going to carve time out of our weekends for on the North American soccer calendar. And it's an unusual weekend. It's an international break, so there's not as many club games happening, obviously. But if you look down the list, I mean, it is crunch time. It is the playoff end for the second and third divisions in the United States. So an interesting weekend to pick a Fab Four. Jason, what you going to lead us off with?
Well, I mean, I'll do it. I'll take the championship game that is on the board, because why wouldn't I take, that is for the trophy. It is happening. Knoxville, Knoxville. We want to do club names correctly, right? So Knoxville out of Knoxville, Tennessee, taking on Spokane Velocity out of Washington State. So this is a big deal. USL championship, USL League One final rather. And Rob, what's the detail? I think you have the information on what Knoxville has done in terms of getting people in the building to support their team as they go for this title. It's something record breaking, as I believe is how they're framing this.
Yes, per Alex Ashton on Blue Sky, One Knox is saying that they have sold 6,540 tickets as of that post for the USL League One final, and are still selling standing room tickets. And they're saying it's going to be the biggest crowd in USL League One history. So if that holds up to be true, that's an incredible atmosphere, an incredible audience for the biggest game of their season. And we know in American postseason, especially in lower leagues, those postseason games don't always get the full stands because they don't have a big lead up. But it looks like One Knox doing great numbers.
I mean,
here.
This is exactly what we want. We want a story of a town like Knoxville, Tennessee, which is never going to have quote unquote professional top level major league sports. They're always going to be operating in some quote unquote minor league, however you want to frame it. I know we did this debate a while back, minor league versus lower league and all that stuff, whatever you call it. This is where Knoxville is going to live. Now, obviously, with promotion and relegation coming in the near future, you can imagine this game, or maybe it's via league standings, or maybe it's via making the playoffs, period, or winning a semifinal or something, would get you into the next level. But this is still a trophy and a championship. And even without promotion on the line, people in Knoxville are clearly excited. They play in a minor league baseball stadium, right? They're going to put 6,500 people or standing room only, all that stuff in a minor league baseball stadium. Is it going to be a perfect environment? The environment we want, the ideal environment for professional soccer in America? No, but it's going to be a step along the way to that, perhaps. I mean, this is the kind of thing that if it gets enough attention and people go out and they enjoy themselves, and maybe Knoxville wins or maybe Knoxville doesn't, this is the kind of thing that gets added to, here's why we should build a soccer stadium for One Knoxville and have a place just for them that belongs to them, and it's 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, and then, oh, look, we can move up in the world and go to the top division or go to the championship because we are that kind of town. We are taking on that spirit of being a soccer town, a football town in a world that is changing around the game in America.
With so much angst and consternation on the USL Championship side about the top seeds going down, one Knoxville SC, actually the 1 seed in this year's table, getting the top prize there for the regular season, and Spokane Velocity FC coming in 3rd in the table, 6 points behind 1 Knox. So my second pick of the Fab Four kind of leaves me in the USL Championship. It is semifinal weekend in the USL Championship. So Pittsburgh Riverhounds hosting Rhode Island FC, and on the west side, FC Tulsa versus New Mexico United. And so this is a toss-up, and if I'm going to have to put one in pen on our Fab Four, I'm going to go with friends of the show, New Mexico United, and with Mario in the chat. So FC Tulsa
shout out to our
New
man
Mexico
Mario.
United.
Are we split allegiance around here? I know Mario doesn't. He's not holding it against us that we went out to Albuquerque and did the show and had that cool time with New Mexico United. But obviously, big deal for Tulsa hosting this game, getting an opportunity to maybe move on to a USL Championship final. I think we should also mention the other semifinal, right? That was just Pittsburgh,
Coachless Pittsburgh.
In Rhode Island. Well, they have a coach. It's just not the guy they started the season with, and nobody really knows exactly why Bob Lilly is. It would be
soccer reporters find out. Let's get the story.
Look, without knowing what Bob Lilly did, right? We don't know what he did. Without knowing what he did, it makes it uncomfortable for me to say this, but I'll say it anyway. It would be wild if Pittsburgh finally breaks through and wins their championship that has eluded them for so long under Bob Lilly without Bob Lilly. It's so wild that he is not available to coach this team as they have navigated their way to this semifinal in the USL Championship.
Yeah, hashtag free Bob. That's pretty funny. You see on College Game Day tomorrow a free Bob sign in the back. That'd be pretty funny.
Man, if we were able to do a morning kick around live event from Pittsburgh, from that stadium right there on the water, which again they got plans to expand all that stuff. I hear it's amazing. I need to get out there. We would hope for some free Bob signs in the background. Like, again, without knowing what he did, it makes it really tough.
Tulsa Mario saying that there's rumors of 9K fans in the stadium for that Western Conference tilt. So that's exciting. If Knoxville's getting over 6,000 and then 9,000 over there for that. This a great weekend for USL.
Do you know what? I'm just going to bring this in. This is not soccer, but it seems as though Tulsa's having a moment in terms of television, I guess. Isn't there like a Sylvester Stallone show about Tulsa?
There is.
And then there's this show that I started watching called The Lowdown, which is also set in Tulsa with Ethan Hawke.
Really?
It's a weird one. So I'm learning a lot about Tulsa through these television shows. They don't make Tulsa look great necessarily. It's certainly I haven't watched King of whatever, Tulsa, Sylvester Stallone, but I have watched the other one a little bit. Anyway,
there's going to be an NCIS,
maybe,
Tulsa, right?
Yeah, we need an inside NCIS Navy in Tulsa for some reason. Okay,
something like that.
All right. Anyway, that's all right. And I'll shout out to your man Luke, who's pointing out that in the TV show Friends, Chandler moved to Tulsa briefly.
It's a cultural hub in the United States, a growing center for the American consciousness, perhaps. But yeah, Tulsa is the new Albuquerque. There's a lot of TV shows that focused on Albuquerque a few years ago. Is if Tulsa wins this game, will there be a new FX show or something coming out there if they win this game? Yeah. But before we go too far down that, let's bring in producer Jenny from a hospital bed. We can't see her
Not
here.
From a hospital bed. My own couch. I am laid up on my back, so I don't have a good way to get my webcam going. So you get the disembodied voice of producer Jenny telling you about the NWSL playoffs, where the Washington Spirit and Portland Thorns is going to be my choice of game. The Spirit kind of feel like the odds-on favorite to win the NWSL after coming up short last year. Jason, are you going to this one?
I cannot. I'm on vacation starting tomorrow morning.
Okay.
But, I'll be trying to find a way to watch it as I navigate myself to vacation time. So yeah, it's one of those early starts again. I was there for the noon kickoff last week, which was very much a vibe. So I'm looking forward to hopefully watching it on television on CBS.
Yeah, those noon on Saturday. Yes.
Yeah, those semifinals NWSL getting some good television coverage. Obviously, CBS tomorrow at midday, and then Sunday at 3 on ABC. So some some good network television
That-
broadcasts for the NWSL semifinals.
That
Go ahead.
Orlando Gotham game will be interesting as well. How will Gotham come back a week after dethroning one of the greatest regular season teams the NWSL has ever seen?
Yeah.
So keep an eye out on that one as well.
And shout out, I think it's kind of gone under the radar, but Marta coming out of retirement and being amazing at soccer still at a very advanced age.
You know what we should mention is that, and this is Marta, I believe this is from a goal from last year's playoffs. Marta is nominated for an award named after Marta. She's nominated for her own damn award. That is baller. I don't think she's going to win. I think Ovalle is going to win it, but that's incredible. That's great. I mean, I love that. That's amazing.
Like Puskas nominated for the Puskas Award.
Puskas died before they created the Puskas, I think. So there's no chance. But Marta's a living legend. They named the award for her, and then she was nominated for that award that was named for her. That is baller as hell.
I think it is notable in our Fab Four. Obviously, the chat and our viewers, and especially prioritized our MK Ultra members for the fourth pick of the Fab Four, and not a single one has put the men's national team game in this mix.
No, man. I think we're discerning soccer fans, and we recognize that for what it is. Now, look, I think lots of people are going to watch it or at least keep an eye on it, but it's not the most important game when you have trophies on the line. A trophy in Knoxville is on the line. Advancing to the final is on the line in the USL Championship. Advancing to the final is on the line in the NWSL. Of course, those games are going to take precedence. You know, this is playoff time in America, and we should. And I definitely think, I think we are in this moment too, where, a lot of us maybe came to the game, or certainly I did, through the prism of the U.S. men's national team. That was my entry point. I cared about the national team. 2002 World Cup really got me going. Then I dive into what's happening in the club game in the United States of America. But we're not at this point where people are like, you know what? I don't care about the national team. My club's the most important thing in my life. Who gives a crap about whether the U.S. men proceed to win anything, partly since they disappoint us all the time? Why not just be about my local team where I can go out and see them, or, even if you can't get out to the games, take care about the thing that's happening here in your backyard.
So that is the Fab Four of the weekend of November 14th. We got USL Championship on the line in the third division, and then places in the final in the NWSL and the USL Championship. So good luck to all, and curious to see who is the USL 1 champion and who will be in those finals. And be like our man, Mr. Vertigo, become an MK Ultra, support this program at a $3.99 month level. You get priority commenting on these live streams, early access to videos, bonus videos, and access to the morning Kickaround Discord server. And it's more than a chat room. It's kind of a developing community. Lots of great conversations, a give and take of information, insights, and conversation on the Discord. So support us there. And if not, just hit that subscribe button. Tell your family, friends, and anyone else you might run into to hit the subscribe button. That's right.
Yep.
All right. I thought you were doing the finger of addition.
I'm emoting for you, Rob. I'm adding some passion to this. You're doing a great job. Keep going.
All right. The passion continues in the second half of our show today. We're going to talk Major League Soccer, monumental seismic change to the Euro calendar. We're talking about it here up next on Morning Kickaround. Big day in Major League Soccer. It was November 13th when the MLS owners decided to vote in favor of changing to a European-style calendar, starting in the mid to late summer and then ending and having the playoffs in May. We obviously had a conversation with Jeremiah Oshan when it was noted that there was going to be a big topic of discussion when the owners met. But they went ahead and voted on it and released the news straight away. Big news yesterday coming out of Major League Soccer.
Yeah. I mean, as you can see here, this is the graphic they put out that indicates what it will look like when they make this change. If you are I think what's important here, because if you're a fan of soccer, you understand how most of Europe runs their calendar, right? We come out of the summer, we get into August, we kick off, we go through the rest of the calendar until we get to May, and then you crown a champion. Now, things that are fundamentally different about the way MLS operates compared to those European calendars. Two things. Number one, you got playoffs. So you got to figure out where those are going to be included, how those are going to play out in your calendar. And number two, because of the weather, as you make this choice, because there are plenty of places in the United States where you can't play games in most of December, January, parts of February, maybe even later than that, MLS has baked in a significant winter break. I think they said from mid-December to early February, Rob. And if you're skipping over January completely, then we're talking about not 4 weeks, we're talking about 6.5 weeks of break there for Major League Soccer. So regular season from July, late July until December, take a break, come back in February, finish out the year, which will feel like a sprint that second part of the season.
Yeah, indeed it will. But I've seen in the conversation of it that the footprint of the season is about 91% the same. They're just rearranging the start time. So I think that was a way to abate people's concerns about playing in the winter. But as Jeremiah said in our interview earlier this week, that, MLS season was already starting in February. So that's just being scooched up just a little bit and then ending in mid-December for that break. So it's definitely interesting. Major League Soccer definitely gung-ho, or at least publicly gung-ho about this. And then in the reporting that's come out over the last 24 hours, I guess, was that this has been in the debate in the halls of power for quite some time. And apparently there was some frustration because I thought it was logical to do this in 2026 because they're going to have a weird overlap. And so they're going to have like a mini sprint season or something. And that would have been optimal next year and then start this new calendar after the World Cup. But apparently there was enough argument counter to doing this that it took I guess a year longer than they would have.
Well, okay. I talked to Paul Tenorio on the radio yesterday, athletic writer, one of the guys that broke the news ahead of the MLS official announcement. And he said that he thought they had the support for this back in April when Don Garber talked about it for the last Board of Governors meeting, but they were not able to get it across the line for whatever reason. And so MLS kind of kicked the can down the road when they maybe didn't have to, or maybe could have moved faster and then could conceivably have gotten this done so that it could start post World Cup break in 2026. And think about the lost momentum. Think about the loss of the ability to sort of hype up your calendar change. And hey, you're going to watch the World Cup. Just come and join MLS, watch MLS. We're starting our new season. We're making this monumental change. We're moving towards the world calendar and all of that. But they didn't do it. And I don't look, you can't go back in time. You can't fix that now. What's done is done. So what MLS now has to do is sell this as the right thing for the league to do. I know my man Mike Thomas is in here. He's a Philadelphia Union fan. I think he's a little bit on the fence and skeptical about this and said, if they're going to do it, fine, but you got to really sell it. You got to make it count. You kind of can't half-ass this thing. And let's talk about the reasons, Rob. Let's break down the reasons they say they are doing this. Something I think they described as strategic. What is it? Strategic
benefits of the calendar shift. So they laid out 4 major points of the benefits of this calendar shift. Number 1, optimize global transfer market activity.
Aligning with global. I'm going to do this in my announcer voice because it's the only way you can deliver this.
Corporate speak us.
Or I can do it like a corporate training video. Aligning with global schedules allows MLS to participate more effectively in the world's major transfer windows, improving opportunities to acquire and sell top talent. Insert your dumb music here. So do we buy this? I think, by the way, this being number 1 is a tell. Not that MLS cares about showing their hand here, but I think this is what this is about when you talk about selling the owners, Rob, because what is part and parcel of this move is potentially damaging your match day revenue. Potentially. We don't know for sure. And you can argue about how much of the season is basically happening in the same part of the calendar. It's just a different part of the season flow. But this thing, to me, is why you were able to get MLS owners on board, because they are putting money into their academies, most of them, and they're not seeing the returns they think they should be seeing. And they have probably been told by their CSOs, by people who consult in the game, by people in Europe, hey, if you're if your windows matched up with ours, we'd be way more interested in your players and your teams would be more willing to sell. So this to me is what this mainly is about. MLS wants to see a return on their development investment. The knock-on effect of how it impacts everybody else, not that it's secondary, but I don't think it is leading this. I think this is what's leading this.
We might dig into it a little bit more, but in the writing in the Athletic, they were saying that part of these changes is they want to go from local businesses to national and international business successes. So I think that's kind of an underlying thing that we can get into in a little bit.
I would love, we're going to talk about some of the knock-on effects, and we're going to talk about the rest of American soccer and how they might respond to what MLS is doing. Is MLS going to be leading something? And we did again acknowledge that the Super League plays on this calendar already. But we're going to get to that knock-on effect. But I do want to know from everybody in the chat, do you care if this is about MLS owners wanting to make more money on selling talent? Do you care that that's their motivation if it means something good for you? If you like this move, right? If you like this move, do you care why they're doing it? Or does it take something away from it if they're like, well, we're just trying to make more money on selling players? I want to do that. Let's move on to number 2.
Number 2 of the strategic benefits of the calendar change: maximize player signings.
So this is the other side of this, right? And again, this is what the CSOs, the chief soccer officers, the technical directors, the general managers, whatever title they hold, the presidents of soccer, whatever title they hold in their team, this is what they're telling their owners. We can't get the players in we want to get because the calendar doesn't line up. And even when players are out of contract in the summer, say, and MLS is like, well, we want to go out and buy a player. There are lots of players who are like, well, I got to wait and see if I get a contract offer here in Europe before I decide to come to Major League Soccer. Like I can't sign with you now. And then the MLS window closes. Those teams miss out on those players and those players go off somewhere else. They were considering MLS, but because the windows don't align exactly. And I believe one thing about this, by the way, Tom Bogert reporting that MLS will extend their summer window. With this move, they will add more time to the window for signings to happen. So again, this is not just marquee players, although that's part of it. The new calendar allows MLS teams to fully integrate summer signings before the MLS regular season and cup competitions begin. Right. This is just what everybody else gets to do. And if you are if you're swimming in the same waters for players as the second tier of leagues in Europe, occasionally top tier leagues in Europe, you want to be lined up.
Be kind of interesting to see if they maybe have a MLS adds like a cheeky week longer than the European or like the Premier League calendar. So they, that would almost like a player could use a Major League Soccer as like a leverage point, to if it doesn't work out there, that they'd have, more ability to go to Major League Soccer.
Absolutely. I mean, that is that necessarily benefit MLS? Maybe not, but it does pull
Gets you in
MLS
the conversation.
Into the conversation. Exactly. And when you go and you click on transferrumors.net.biz. whatever, MLS is going to be more involved in those conversations than ever before because the windows line up. And I don't think that's a small thing to note. And again, maybe it's not driving everything. Maybe it's not the reason you do this. But if you are now involved more often in the off-season, closed season transfer rumor mill conversations, it's an awareness thing. And companies pay millions of dollars just to have awareness, just so people know they exist and are constantly in front of people's eyeballs. And if that's something MLS gets out of this, well, that's a net positive for the league.
There's a lot less bumps in the road. It's a linear thing. You want a player, let's get a player is probably a goal that they're working towards. And you're talking about awareness, them acknowledging that the product on the field needs to match the improvements of the infrastructure around. Number 3 in the benefits of the calendar change: align with the FIFA calendar.
Mindful of FIFA international windows, the new calendar will significantly reduce conflicts between MLS league matches and national team call-ups for players, particularly during summer tournaments, rather. Yes, please. Thank you. Hallelujah. Praise the soccer gods. This is what we have been asking for, right? And there is absolutely a tension that has existed in MLS for a long time now as the league has become more and more important in the player market, where the CSOs, these team builders, these owners are like, do we sign that guy if he's going to miss 10 games a season because he's going away on international duty and MLS does not respect all the windows? Do we as a team choose not to play in a window because we've got too many internationals? Does that mean we ended up having to play an extra midweek date, which not only is tougher on the players if you're playing multiple games in a single week, but now also means maybe our match day revenue is impacted and all those things because it's harder to sell tickets in the middle of the week than it is on the weekend. Like, those questions should not be in front of MLS teams. They should be able to build a team without having to worry about their players missing games because they are first choice internationals. You should want first choice internationals, particularly among the top end countries, right? The goal for MLS, just like every other league, is to have the best players possible. Well, if those players are constantly being called up by elite world-class countries, you don't get the benefit of them being in your team the way that you should. So again, respecting the international calendar, taking the breaks, massive step forward if they do this.
And it's, again, elevating where the MLS conversation is in the broader conversation, because how many times have you seen, the light in someone's eyes getting disappointed when you're like, oh, Major League Soccer's playing during this? Like, that totally like devalues it.
Look,
when it makes it seem like, oh, we aren't enough to be even touching, because that's what the lower leagues do.
You can't have it both ways.
Yeah.
You can't have it both ways. And sometimes MLS fans, and I don't know if you call them apologists, but though there was like, well, Brazil or Argentina or somebody is playing through the break. And it's like, yeah, but there's a reason those leagues are just feeder leagues to Europe for the most part with their top end talent. Yes, they matter. River Plate and Boca Juniors matter. Some of the most passionate fans on the planet follow those teams, and maybe they don't care. But if MLS is going to aspire to something different than what the Primera in Argentina is, or what the Brazilian league is, then you can't be playing through the breaks. You want to be like them, which is, I think, respectable, I think legitimate, but that's not how a lot of people view where MLS should go. You can't play through the breaks.
I did see noted in one of the articles in The Athletic that they may still play through the new October-November hybrid. There's FIFA is smashing together the October and November window. And I
think they're smashing together September-October window. So it's going to be late September into early October. That's a long break that FIFA's smashing. So it's instead of the week, basically, it's going to be 2 weeks. And you're right. Like there will still be choices, and different leagues will have to make different choices. And again, they can say this now because words are cheap and promises are promises. But if we go back and look at the proposed calendar, that winter break creates pressure now, because if you're playing 34 regular season games and a playoff tournament, when are you playing those games if you are taking every international break? So as they say this, and we want to believe them, we have to keep in mind that there still might be some problems with it.
Number 4 on the strategic benefits given to us by Major League Soccer. Simple. Elevate the playoffs.
Yeah, what does that mean? Well, it means that you're not competing with American football, at least in there will be competition with American football. The calendar still overlaps with American football because you cannot get away from it, but your playoffs will no longer be happening while the country is paying attention to American football, college and pro. And obviously, you mentioned the November break. The November break, smack dab in the middle of the MLS Cup playoffs, happening right now, completely erodes all the momentum you might get out of the playoffs. It says, uninterrupted by FIFA international match windows. So now you have a chance to run your playoff season the way it was meant to be run, without interruption. And hopefully, although there's no guarantee that this makes a massive difference, but hopefully allows for the league to get more of the oxygen for sports coverage in the country with, I think, the way that they plan this, and I'm going to go once again back to the proposed calendar. It says May for MLS Cup. So more than likely you won't be running into the business end of the NBA or NHL playoffs. You'll be kind of towards the front end of those things where it's not as intense. You're not talking about crowning a champion in those leagues. So you will be more able to get attention for your playoffs. That would be my presumption about what that means.
The bar will seem low with this comment, but I am encouraged that there's an acknowledgement of the obvious issues that people have complained about. And in the next segment, we're going to talk about, what this all means and the knock-on effects of all this. But it is nice to see an acknowledgement of the roadblocks and the kind of the folly of the system and certain mechanisms in Major League Soccer. Just seeing the powers that be acknowledge those things is refreshing to a degree, but we didn't even necessarily touch on the format changes that comes along with this, because not only does the calendar, the time change, but the teams that everyone will play are going to change.
Well, that has not been officially confirmed by MLS, and that's one thing that Garber and Nelson Rodriguez and other people who have spoken about this move have said is we're still figuring some things out. Now, they obviously felt confident enough after the vote to make the announcement that they're doing the calendar switch, and I have to go way back in the chat because the chat is going strong. Thank you, everybody, by the way, for being members, being part of this conversation, dotting our map. I think I got to catch up on a couple of dots for MK Ultras, but I saw somebody mention that the USLPA needs to sign off on this, and that is part of the story here that maybe isn't getting enough attention, that the MLSPA rather is going to have to say, yep, we're on board with this, we're okay changing our contract, calendars, things like that. I think ultimately this is a good thing for the players and they will get there. But as I was saying on the Best Soccer Show last night, go find that if you want more conversation on this. Jonathan Tannenwald joined us from the Philadelphia Inquirer. If you're the MLSPA, you don't just go, yep, we're 100% on board. You say, no, we want this in order to do what you want. Like, you use the leverage you have because they need your buy-in. So you should push for something, some concession, something that will benefit the players in the end. So that is part of this as well, Rob. But the format, what is out there right now as a distinct rumor is that they will move to a single table in terms of establishing who the playoff teams are, but go to 5 6-team divisions. So if you, and again, this is just what's out there as the reporting from Tom Bogert, Paul Tenorio, and the rumors, but that would mean that you make the playoffs based on your finish in the total table, and the 5 division winners, I think, would be guaranteed playoff spots from what I understand. Now, how that works with like where they finish and seeding, I don't know if we know that yet. But the math is you play everybody in your division twice, home and away. So that with local rivalries and things like that, regional stuff, that kind of makes sense, although you would be splitting up some rivalries depending on how they do this geographically. So that would be 10 games. And then you play the other 24 teams in the league once each, balanced through home and away. And now you have 34 games, just like the current regular season.
Seismic stuff coming to Major League Soccer. Interesting, this is coming in 2027. Obviously, they said that 26 would have been more beneficial to do this change, but the players' collective bargaining agreement expires at the end of 2027. So curious if they'll have to ratify this before this starts, because then we speculate a little bit with Jeremiah O'Shan that like, oh, when they have a new CBA in 28, that might be the more realistic start time if they're starting anew. But maybe there's a ratification to happen prior to this. A CBA
is just a contract between the two parties. If they both agree to tear it up and start over and use the previous framework to create a new one that kicks off when this kicks off at the beginning of the 2027-28 MLS season, then it doesn't matter, right? It's just a matter of, again, getting the lawyers in the room and having those discussions.
And the whole divisioning thing, I saw some speculation already on. That's a fun conversation we can have in the future of how do you group those teams. And I saw some people making up sponsorships for all the naming.
I saw that too. Yeah, I saw some divisions where unfortunately you would have to separate San Jose from the Southern California teams, because now you have 3 Southern California teams. They could be grouped with the Texas teams to create sort of a Southwest division. Anyway, that's all speculation. As I said on my Blue Sky account, American soccer fans are format nerds, and while the calendar changes, like, yeah, okay, whatever, the division thing gets people really excited. I can't wait to make divisions for MLS. Anyway, let's consider the other impacts of this, Rob.
All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Subscribe as we're going along. Thank you to our new members, and be sure to click that button as we go. We're going to come back with the big question and some of your comments and really get back and forth here on the big question. What are the knock-ons of the calendar switch? Hang on tight here on Morning Kickaround. Big question of the day here on Morning Kickaround, right after Major League Soccer ownership votes in a calendar switch, a big change for Major League Soccer to switch over to a Euro-centric calendar. But now what are the knock-on effects of this change? You know, a lot of the change in the soccer goes from top down. So how will USL react, and how will all the other entities across the American soccer landscape react to this news?
I think it's natural to wonder about the other professional leagues. And again, because of the way American soccer has developed, we have a business, Major League Soccer, that's doing a thing that they think is right for their business. And over there, you have USL, who's got their own big plans, obviously, who now have to decide what is right for our business. Do we follow suit because Major League Soccer is going to pull so many things in that direction, or do we stick where we are? Now, there is just the pragmatic issue of, does USL have the facilities to switch their calendar the same way that MLS does? And I saw that come up in the chat earlier. I mean, that's a thing. Now, you wouldn't be playing minor league baseball in the winter or the late fall or the early part of the calendar, depending on when you take your break of USL. So I don't know that I mean, it's just a matter of contracts, right? It's a matter of control. It's a matter of what whoever owns and operates the stadium is willing to let you do. So that's all kind of part and parcel of this. It may not be that USL doesn't have the will to do this in light of what MLS has done. It may be that the details prevent them from doing it on any sort of timeline in the very near future.
It's wild to think, because if you think back in the archives, I feel like USL was actually the one that floated the Euro change prior to this many years ago, maybe pre-COVID or in and around the COVID year. I feel like they floated this idea a little bit.
I don't actually remember them putting it out there directly, unless it was a rumor that I missed. But again, the Super League, they decided to put that league on this fall to spring calendar.
Not to break in really quick, but the calendar switch was discussed at a USL AGM. I want to say in the right around the COVID, like right after COVID time, but it was shot down.
Okay. So it came up and they were like, this is not something for us. Now, again, I wonder, and if you are a USL first fan, if your team that you care about is in USL, do you see this as, well, don't just respond to MLS. Why would you let MLS dictate to you how you operate? Unless, of course, you think through the impact of this and whether that MLS move kind of dictates how the player market changes and things like that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have to kind of look into how intertwined those two competitions are, or those two businesses are, in order to decide whether USL needs to change. Because as is being posited in the chat, is it advantageous for USL to differentiate from MLS and be the summer league? Or is it just feel too disconnected from world football that it looks weird if you don't follow suit and get in line?
Yeah, because as of now, they are, following the status quo of what the American soccer calendar is. But once Major League Soccer is not there, what is the claim to do that? Do you want to be different and play through the summer? Obviously, that was one of the things that got me into Major League Soccer, is in the summer when I'm looking for some ball to watch, that was the option. So does USL maintain that? There are the league that is active and watchable in those July and August months. Is that even worth it? I mean, that's only 6 weeks or so. Is it worth it holding on to that for the 6 weeks?
Again, so at one reason MLS is saying this is necessary is that they want to go from a league of local interest to a league of national and international interest. That doing this not only helps them with player movement and those kind of things, helps them avoid the international breaks, but also allows the league potentially to sell itself as a serious, nationally important, got to watch it on television every week kind of competition. Now, like, there are lots of steps. This is very much underpants gnome territory for me. Like, we make this change, da-da-da-da-da. We're a nationally important league. I don't know that I know what those links are. They probably have thought this out, but I don't know what they are. Whereas, and again, if MLS is saying, we are no longer going to prioritize match day revenue as the driver of the money that comes into our business. Like, it's not that we're leaving that behind and we don't want match day revenue. We still want that. We still want to get as many bodies in the stands as possible, but we aren't going to make decisions where that is the central concern. If this is happening because they are putting that to the side and saying, okay, we have other priorities now. USL is not at a place, despite their desire to also get a big television contract, they're not at a place where they can really make that decision yet, because match day revenue, getting bodies in the stadium, is still the business of USL, whether it's the Championship, League One, or whatever. And again, even when Division One comes in a couple years, it's still going to be driven by, can we get 12,000 people to come out to our game? Oh my gosh, we only got 10 this week, and we got to get, if you're doing that, can you afford? Because even though the calendar for MLS hits the same parts of the year with this switch, you are taking away the summer months in those places where getting families out, getting that dollar from those people who come out and support your team in July, August, whatever, is so important to the USL.
Going into the member chat, George, amateur leagues may want to start looking at switching the calendar also. I'd like to hear your reasoning on this. I had a chat group discussing that, how it would affect Oakland County FC and whatnot. I'd like to hear your reasons on why it would be advantageous for the amateur league.
Yeah, I would love to hear from George on that. I would say that, one thing that is interesting as a knock-on effect that I haven't really thought through, Rob, and you would have a much better sense of this with Oakland County, is if MLS is now playing on the European calendar and not playing through the summer, those summer league teams are often looking to get out of season college players to fill their rosters, right? They're high amateur, but they're largely driven by college players. If you, as an amateur league, NPSL, UPSL already plays 2 tournaments, fall and spring, but NPSL, USL League 2, if you switch to this calendar, then you're not playing through those months when those college kids are available anymore, right? Doesn't it fundamentally change who is on your roster in a given season?
Yeah, I mean, the reason why the summer amateur season is, a 3-month season is because the college players are available in their summer break. I don't know, like, top of mind, I can't think of how this affects the summer leagues. I think the college calendar proposal would have a way bigger impact, not a completely eclipsing impact, I don't think, but that would definitely, I think, loom larger for that. I think I need to do more thinking on if this Major League Soccer affects that at all. I have to think about that a little bit more, but I do think that it makes everyone, evaluate. I mean, that I'm sure there's people thinking about that in those leagues and in those boardrooms. The decision makers in there are probably evaluating how they did that. Yeah. And I think any sort of evaluation, when obviously, I don't think we're doing anything perfectly just yet. So I think that might be healthy to address what they might be doing.
Here's another thing, U.S. Open Cup. John, with that, how does this impact the U.S. Open Cup? I did not see it myself, so I got to go source it individually, but I did see someone I follow on social media share a screenshot that seemed to indicate that MLS was again sort of reevaluating participation in the U.S. Open Cup, and that this may be connected on some level. Here it is. Before the calendar change, MLS will stage a transition season from February to May 2027, which we haven't really talked about yet, featuring a 14-game regular season playoffs MLS Cup. Those results will determine the 2027 qualification for the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, Canadian Championship, League Cup, and CONCACAF's Cup. So, Champions Cup. So, in terms of that, does that mean, like, if that's determining who's in the U.S. Open Cup, are you indicating that you're not putting all your teams in the U.S. Open Cup? There's no reason to qualify teams for the Open Cup through that competition if everybody's participating. And obviously MLS has pulled back on that anyway. Now they put more teams back in after that initial drawdown 2 years ago. But this doesn't look like we're getting back to the old days of every MLS team, every American MLS team being involved in the U.S. Open Cup, does it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point, because if they're talking about qualification, I mean, the whole competition is supposed to be about everybody across the country being involved in it. So looks like that half-ass participation is probably going to continue here. And I think it's going to be a little bit awkward. I mean, Open Cup has changed their format in the past to appease the MLS schedule. We'll see if they continue with that. I didn't see what you put on just there.
Yeah, that was Mike Thomas saying Leagues Cup at a neutral venue winter break, as a neutral venue winter break competition. All teams play, then all teams play in the Open Cup as well, please. Now, he's sort of asking for that latter part. I do think the idea of Leagues Cup filling the break is interesting. Obviously, again, we are talking about 6 to 7 weeks of no MLS regular season. So are you just going to mothball your teams for that entire period? No, that's crazy. That's longer than your quote-unquote off season. So there's going to be something there. Again, what that looks like. Is it a neutral venue thing? Is it like we all go down south? Maybe with Leagues Cup, you actually get a chance to go to Mexico and play games in Mexico instead of doing it just in the United States.
Yeah, that's a good point. That just came to mind. Is there an appetite for winter games in Mexico? Obviously, they play the spring fall format. Are the teams active and engaged in training at that time of the year? Like, are they looking for more?
Well,
more games?
So they do the Apertura and the Clausura. The Apertura, starts early, late July, I believe, is when they usually get going with the Apertura, and then you're done with the Liguilla playoffs. December, I think, is when we get the Liguilla playoffs, and then so you crown a champion. Then they take the break, and then I believe so. January is the month off typically for Liga MX, in my memory. If I'm wrong about that, somebody help me out if I'm just getting this wrong while I'm live on the air. So then that would mean that essentially you're lined up. Like, you are pretty close to what Mexico does with their rhythms. Now, they do 2 seasons and it's different, and they do some preseason stuff, but why not? I mean, both leagues are sort of in this in between moment, and now your calendars are lining up, and you get a chance to build into your in the case of Mexico, into your Clausura, in the case of Major League Soccer, into the second half of your regular season. I could see that working. Absolutely, I could see that working.
Not a member, but I wanted to bring him in. Not familiar with this screen name, but love it. Beef in Grand Rapids, or Beef in GR at least. If USL 1 USL is serious about Division 1, it needs to launch D1 on the European calendar. Otherwise, don't even bother with it. Do we agree that it's that cut and dry?
Ooh,
I mean, I understand his point, because, I mean, if the American First Division is there and they're trying to be aligned with the world, I mean, it makes sense to switch that too.
Yeah, I guess
but that makes all the leagues, if they're going pro rel, all the leagues would have to.
I think that you have to kind of decide, like, are we, there's kind of been this little bit of question in the air about whether this is competition for MLS. If USL is thinking that their first division is going to be competition for MLS. Oh, it's not competition. I don't think anybody clearly, there's no messaging that's clear from USL on that front, as far as I can tell. Maybe it's been said that it's, they're not thinking of it that way. If you are competing with MLS, do you need to be aligned with MLS on the calendar? If you're not competing with MLS, then who cares when you play? Play when you play. And again, if the notion is we can be D1 under the PLS and that's going to help our business in some way, but it's not really about being the most high profile league because we can't spend money like MLS, then there's no reason to switch, in my mind. But again, if you are thinking about this as some massive ambitious leap, and you also want to be connected to the rest of the world in meaningful ways with player market and everything else, then maybe you have to. Maybe you do. Again, I think it depends on which direction you look. If you are an American soccer league, are you looking east to Europe for your cues? Are you trying to line up with England and Spain and Germany and Italy? Or are you looking south and you're thinking, actually, we want to be more aligned with our hemisphere, which means Brazil and Argentina and Colombia and a couple other leagues down there, Mexico, obviously. And then is your calendar decision based on that way of viewing who you are interacting with the most? Because if USL is growing and USL is ambitious, then USL has to engage internationally. And then there is a question of what your calendar should be.
back in the spring, we talked to a couple leaders in American soccer that said that, both USL and Major League Soccer acknowledging that they're not capturing all the soccer lovers. There's a lot of soccer fans, but not necessarily the same amount of MLS and USL fans. And they're trying to capture all these things. So we had a topic lined up. What happens first, pro rel or the calendar change? And it looks like the calendar change beat them to the punch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's all kind of going to be happening around the same timeline. Again, I don't think MLS did this because USL did that. I don't think it have anything to do with each other. And USL didn't do what they did because of MLS, other than to say we can be different than MLS, which might help our business. Those sort of questions kind of swirling around, I definitely think are out there. I do have a thing, and maybe we'll leave with this and let people comment. And maybe jump in the Discord if you're an MK Ultra. And if you're not MK Ultra, become an MK Ultra so you can dictate our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if there is something that MLS is thinking about when it comes to those soccer fans that are not capturing, right? So if you're MLS, do you focus on the unconverted, the non-soccer fans in America, the people who are sports fans or inclined to sports, or maybe are, counterculture types, which MLS has attracted a bunch of? Do you go after them, sort of brand new people, or do you go after the latent soccer fan base that exists here that you're not capturing? Again, those soccer fans who watch the Premier League, those soccer fans whose attention is across the Atlantic Ocean for the most part. Now, you can also talk about Liga MX, but they're also on the same schedule, so it kind of fits. Are you now looking at this and going, we are just going to align ourselves with the rhythms of those non-MLS fans, those soccer fans who get up on a Saturday morning and watch the Premier League team, right? Or are watching Liga MX on weekends. And we want our games to kind of be happening on the same rhythm as those, because it allows a Premier League fan to think, oh, I'll watch my Premier League team in the morning and then I'll watch the MLS game. And even though that happens now, that MLS game is a regular season match compared to the Premier League game that is happening at the end of the season, at the business end, or the beginning. So I don't know, is that sort of a subconscious thing that will benefit MLS, that their league is on the same rhythm as, say, the Premier League?
It's definitely something to chew on and definitely something to mull on for quite some time. We're getting to the end of our time today, but there's lots of stuff that we haven't even touched yet. We haven't talked about the mini season that's going to happen. We haven't talked about the Apple TV stuff. There's a lot in here.
One more thing, because it hasn't gotten mentioned by us, and it should, and it got mentioned in the chat. MLS making a decision about its television, or Apple TV and MLS together deciding that there's not going to be an MLS season pass, separate purchase option. If you get Apple TV, you will get MLS. I think that is a good development. You can look at it through a negative lens and say, well, that's Apple admitting they can't sell enough MLS season passes to make it worth it. You could view it that way. I had a friend of mine who's worked for MLS say that to me in a chat and a text message. Or you could just say, well, they're simplifying this. They've also added F1. They want to bring in other sports. It doesn't make sense for them to paywall every one of their sports properties. If they can sell people on buying Apple TV because you get access to 2 or 3 or 4 sports properties, then that's good for Apple. And here's MLS, not in front of a paywall. There is still a paywall. It's just a different paywall. And once you get behind it, you get access to more than just Major League Soccer. You get access to F1 and all the original content and other things that Apple TV has.
This conversation will continue, no doubt, in the Morning Kickaround Discord server. I think this is just the start of this conversation that'll keep on going and going. And shout out to everyone on board. I think we hit our peak live viewership today. I saw us in the triple digits for the first time. So thank you for joining us. Big day in the American soccer landscape, and you showed up to do just that. Big shout out to our new member. We did add a new member during the live show today. So Mr. Vertigo, we will see you in the Morning Kickaround Discord server. And if you want to join in, $3.99 a month gets you priority commenting to videos, early access to videos, bonus content, and that community over there on Discord. So thank you everyone for that.
Programming note, your friend Jason's on vacation next week. So I think Rob's got some things, and we have some stuff already recorded that should be very interesting. So don't think we're not making stuff for you. Just going to be slightly different next week.
Yeah, definitely gonna be a little bit different. Got some good stuff recorded, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna get him involved or not. But I met a very interesting person at soccer last night. He's a PANA, one of the world leaders in the PANA, and he's on an American tour. Christopher from Copenhagen, shout out! Might get him to pop on the show. In a whole new world of like a new version of street ball to me that I didn't even know about. You know about PANA?
Oh, I know about PANA. Yeah, I do.
Well, there you go. I'd heard of it, but got a little bit of an in-depth conversation. So interesting stuff last night. That might be in the mix. And talk about international players getting involved in the college system, and who knows what more will develop. It seems like there is multiple news stories each and every day. So we'll see how we cover that next week. But stay with us and keep the conversation going in the Discord server. Good luck to all the teams playing in the playoffs this weekend. Men's national team tomorrow. And until Monday, everyone, enjoy your soccer. Hit the button.